Hello, I'm Holly, and today I'm going to be doing a bit of a vlog style video because I want to do the try a chapter tag unhaul thing. So I've seen a couple of people do this. The try a chapter thing is where you pick a number of books and you read the first chapter, and I think originally it was just to decide what book you're going to read next. But I have seen a couple of variations on this where people have read the first chapter of a bunch of books that they don't know whether to unhaul to kind of make up their mind and see if they like the writing style, see if it still has their interest. And I wanted to do that because recently I did a book reorganisation and unhaul video. I will link that in the description. I had a lot of fun at doing that, and I had a lot of books that I was a little bit unsure about. I had a little bit of interest, but I wasn't sure if they were really going to work for me. And today I'm going to pick 5. I think I'm going to start with 5. We'll see how this goes. If there are a lot of like really short chapters, I might pick up an extra few. And I'm going to read the first chapters and see if I want to unhaul them. This could be a really successful video. What would you call success? Unhauling a lot or figuring out that they are books that I really want to read? I don't know. So I hope that you enjoy this video, and let's go and pick the 5 books that I'm going to read the first chapter of. Okay, so here's my little bookshelf of the books that I wasn't entirely sure about. There are a few that go down there as well. Now, the first book actually isn't on this shelf, and that book is the DaVinci Code by Dan Brown. A couple of people in my reorganisation video said that they actually really enjoyed this, so I think I want to read the first chapter, and then let's have a look at here. So I want to pick maybe 4 or 5 more books. I think I'm gonna do an Ember in the Ashes because obviously I've got the first 2 books there, so that could be like unhauling 2 books. And that's like young adult fantasy. I'm not sure if I'm like in love with young adult fantasy anymore, so I'm gonna try that one. Maybe this one, Frankie Stein, because I have read another book by Jeanette Winterson, but I didn't like it. But that one was a children's book, so it might just be like a different writing style, so I'm gonna try that one. The next one, I'm gonna do Genuine Fraud because this is a thriller and it's just been on my shelves for so long and I've just never wanted to pick it up, so I'm gonna try that one. Let's pick 1 more for now. I could always do some more in another video. What should I do? There's lots of young adult fantasy on here. Oh no, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do Sister Noon. I said in a TBR video that if I didn't read it in that month, I'd unhaul it, but it's still here because I still feel like I could enjoy this book, so I'm definitely going to read the first chapter of that one. Hello and welcome to my floor. So I've picked 5 books to do in this video. I think I'm just going to do 5 in this video and then I will probably make a couple more videos through the year. So I'm going to read them in that order, the order that I picked them, and that means that I'm going to start with The DaVinci Code by Dan Brown. I'm back, and this was actually the book that I was just going to unhaul. I wasn't even going to try the first chapter, but the first chapter and the prologue were very thrilling. So in the prologue, you're introduced to the curator of an art gallery. Is it the Louvre? It's something in France, yeah, the Louvre Museum. And he is killed. And then in chapter 1 you meet Robert Langdon, who is the main character, and a policeman arrives at his door and tells him that this man who he was going to meet the curator that evening, that this man is dead, and this is obviously going to start the book. That really caught my interest. It was just already very thrilling, and I think that this one is like an action thriller, and I have been a little bit intrigued. Obviously I picked it up in the first place, but I think this one is a lot about like art history and classics and secret societies, and I knew that, but I love those things. And immediately we've been introduced to like this whole like religious thing, and I just think I want to keep this because I think that I could actually really enjoy it. And the people who commented on my reorganisation video said that it was a very like fun and fast-paced read, and I could definitely see that. So even though it is like 600 pages, I think I could get through this one pretty quick. So I think I'm actually going to keep this one, and hopefully I will be able to fit it in at some point in the next year or so. The next book that I'm going to be trying is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is a young adult fantasy. I believe that it's partly inspired by Rome. It's quite military heavy. And is this in two perspectives? It looks like it is. And I might read the chapters from both perspectives just to get like introduced to both the characters, Leia and Elias. So I think I'm actually going to read the first two chapters. I just want to see what the writing style is like in this, whether I want to keep it, because I have heard such mixed things. Some people absolutely love this series, some people really don't, and I just don't know whether I've got past like young adult fantasy. I have to be a lot more selective with the ones that I pick up. Let's give it a go, let's see what I think, and let's see if I want to unhaul it. I've just finished the first two chapters of An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and I actually think I might unhaul the first two books that I have in this series because there was nothing overtly wrong with this. The first two chapters I read followed the two perspectives. One of them is a scholar from the scholar families, which are the oppressed class, and then one is from the martial group, which took over and he wants to desert. So there was nothing overtly wrong with it. I just don't know if I'm going to love this series. I feel like martial fantasy that has a very war focus and battle and rebellion is just not my thing anymore, and there's so many other books and series that I want to read over this, so even if I kept it, I don't know how long it would take me to get to. I do know that some people love this series, but I think I'm just going to unhaul this one. I want to be more selective with the young adult fantasy that I pick up. And then the next book that I'm going to read is Frankie Stein by Jeanette Winterson. This one intrigues me a little bit. It's a bit of a retelling of Frankenstein. There's about a young transgender doctor, there's love, there's AI, there's lots of stuff going on, and I think this one is more literary, so I do think with literary I'm really trying to find what I like. It's a bit of hit or miss for me at the moment. So I'm going to give the first chapter of this a go and let's see what I think. So it has been a while since I last talked to you, but I have finished the first chapter of Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson. It didn't take me that long to read this first chapter. I ended up just reading all the first chapters of the ones I had left. So starting with Frankenstein, when I first read like the first page, I was like, oh dear, because it's very poetic and a very interesting and distinct writing style. And sometimes that can work for me and sometimes it can't. But the very first like chapter, these aren't really chapters, it's more like sections. But the first little section was actually following Mary Shelley and the night where she's with Byron and her husband, and they all decide they're gonna like write something very spooky, and one of them is gonna do a vampire story, and Mary Shelley has the idea for Frankenstein. That is the first section. And I wasn't entirely sure whether the writing style was for me, but as I went through, I did start to get a little bit of atmosphere, and I'm actually really intrigued to see where this goes because I think that there are a number of interconnected stories, so I've only really just been introduced to the Mary Shelley one. So I think I'm going to keep this one just because I'm intrigued and I want to see how the author is going to like retell or reimagine Frankenstein. Then the next book that I read the first chapter of was Genuine Fraud by E. Lockhart. The first chapter in this was only a couple of pages, but it proved to me that I want to unhaul this book because it reminded me a lot of a book that I read recently, which was Social Creature, but this one is a young adult thriller. and I think that it's written backwards, and I just feel like it's going to be a bit confusing, and I've had it on my shelves for so long and it's so short. There have been so many opportunities where I could have picked this up for a readathon, for example, but I just haven't, and I just think because of that I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't think it's going to completely blow my mind, and there are so many other thrillers that I want to read before this one, so I think I'm going to unhaul this one. And then finally I read about half of the first chapter of Sister Noon by Karen Joy Fowler. So the first chapter in this isn't too long, it's about 15 pages, but I immediately, within the first couple of pages, was like, no, I don't want to read this book. So this one is set in America in the 1890s, and I just don't think that setting intrigues me. I much prefer maybe a British setting, or other countries. I'd like to read some more like historical fiction set in other countries. But America, the Wild West, is very much following, you know, pioneers and men, and I just don't want to read it, to be honest. And this is one that I have been debating unhauling for a long time, and I was just bored. So maybe I've given up on it too quick. But again, this is a book I have had for so long and it's just never like intrigued me enough for me to want to pick it up. So I think that now is the time to just say goodbye. As a whole then, I think this video has been a bit of a success. There are 2 that I'm definitely keeping and then 3 that I'm not, but there is also the second one in the Ember of the Ashes, so there's 4 that I'm going to be unhauling, and I'm pretty happy with that. I want to make my unread shelves much more exciting to me. At the moment I have so many books that I've had for so many years and I have a little bit of excitement about them, but I want my like TBR to just be the most exciting thing and every book to be like really exciting. And I think doing this little experiment helped me to narrow it down a little bit. I will definitely be doing some other videos like this in the future. I have had a great time at just reading these first chapters and seeing whether I wanted to unhaul these books. But that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and to everyone out there, stay curious. Bye!